Welcome back to Life Design, your number one podcast for discussing every aspect of life, business, and relationships from a growth mindset. So, creating a better or more fulfilling life, it isn't always the easy path, but the steps, they can always be made simple. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe now so you can join us on every episode. We truly appreciate it. And be sure to engage in the comments section of your favorite platform for your chance to be invited as a guest on one of our episodes. I want to thank you for joining me today on part one of Neurostrategies, 21 science-backed techniques to boost your life and career. We're going to start with a simple understanding of what's known as neuroplasticity. And this will lay a foundation for us by understanding the brain's capacity to change and adapt. And neuroplasticity, the term, it reflects the brain, or it refers to the brain's ability to recognize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life, not just when we're kids, but even as adults. And it allows the neurons, which are the nerve cells in the brain, among other things, to compensate for things like injuries or disease, or to adjust the activity of the brain in response to new situations or changes within our environment. So let's take a minute to cover some foundations that we'll need to be able to really go deep and get the most benefit or find the most beneficial information and insights as we walk through this. And we really want to look at, how does this affect our mental health? How does it affect our ability to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish in life? And how do we implement these things? How do we use this information in just general practice in our daily lives? So understanding neuroplasticity itself, and specifically with a focus on its discovery or its transformative role within, understanding the brain. And again, how do we look at practical significance in daily life? With neuroplasticity is, I guess the simple way to put it, it's a foundational concept within the sciences, the neurosciences. And it overturns centuries of belief that the adult brain is fixed or that it's unchanging. And the term itself, neuroplasticity, it refers to the brain's ability to, as I said, recognize itself. Okay. It forms new neural connections throughout our entire life. And this reorganization, so to speak, it occurs in response to experiences that we have, such as learning or, personal exposure to different environments, to different emotions, and to different interactions that we have. And the discovery of it came through a variety of avenues of research. And just so you're aware, some of the more notable some of the more notable studies, I guess we would say, involved individuals that had suffered partial brain damage. Okay. And over time, these individuals, they were actually able to exhibit recovery of certain functions. So things that were previously mediated or what we call controlled by parts of the brain that were now damaged. And there were some other significant contributions that came from it, in the areas of learning, of memory. And what they found was these showed that the processes, they weren't just chemically based, but they were dependent on structural changes within the brain connections themselves. And the implications of neuroplasticity, of understanding that our brains, even as we age and even with injuries or things like that, it indicated that the experiences we have can shape our brain's physical structure and the way it functions. And it's pivotal to have an understanding of that in many aspects of human health and daily life. And a lot of the time, we don't necessarily understand this. We talk to doctors, we talk to different people or therapists or somebody that can help us understand it. But if we can understand it at at just a basic level on our own, okay, this plays a significant role in everything from, the extremes, recovering from brain injuries, down to the acquisition of new skills or in adapting to new environments. And by new environments, I'm referring to things like you move to a new city, a new home, you're in a new relationship, you have new groups of friends, or a new job, right? These are all new environments for us. And when we understand it just a little bit, it helps us in adapting to these new environments without getting so much anxiety or sometimes depression in another regard. You're in a new environment where you don't have some of the things that you enjoyed and that you were used to. And it helps us adapt to these new environments. And understanding this, this as a principle, it instills a sense of agency within us. Okay, it's inspiring us to take charge of our mental health, okay, or our cognitive development, right? Knowing that with intentional effort, change and growth and progress in our lives are possible at any age and in pretty much any situation. So we look at it as our brains are dynamic, okay? And we want to highlight that nature of our brain within our understanding. So we want to look at, well, let me put it this way. For most of history, scientists believe that our brains were relatively fixed, and we're talking, for decades. But recently, well, let me continue with that. So they thought the brains were fixed. Okay, they thought there was a certain developmental period that we had as children, within our childhood, and that beyond that, our brains basically, for lack of a better term, they stopped changing, they stopped developing within us. And this theory suggested that after a certain critical period, the pathways, so to speak, they were established and they were immutable. They didn't change except for due to, our natural aging, meaning in a lot of cases, thinking they were deteriorating, or due to injury. However, what I started to say a moment ago is recent discoveries, over the last few decades, it does go back a few decades, it's dramatically overturned the view of our brains being static. Because the scientists now realize that the brain is actually highly dynamic. Okay, not even just a little bit. It's continuously evolving, and that's the property, or what they call neuroplasticity. I'm trying to keep this dumbed down. When I read it, it was actually a little overwhelming to me, some of the information that I researched. But as we mentioned, it's a paradigm shift that began with studies that were observing many of the aspects of the brain as being changeable or plastic. Okay, that's how they refer to it. Plastic meaning you can mold it, you can shape it. Okay, and that this plasticity it lasts into our adulthood. So, for instance, one of the studies, which I've mentioned many times in different discussions and in previous episodes, or videos was a research that was done in London, and it dealt with taxi drivers. And they found that the drivers actually had enlarged parts of the brain, what they call the hippocampi. Okay. The it's a brain area that's involved with like spatial navigation. Okay. And the taxi drivers was enlarged compared to the general population. And what they found out was that it was a direct result of extensive training that the drivers had experienced in how to navigate the city. Okay. It's not like drivers here. The taxi driver, you just here in the States, you got a car, you got a good driving history, and you kind of know the streets, you can get a job. Over there, they were forced to go through very, very specific training to become taxi drivers. And there were similar studies, though, that have happened as well with individuals or people that are bilingual or musicians, which is, if you're not a musician, you may not be aware of this, but music itself, the writing of music is thought of often as like another language. It's another way to communicate with people. And studies that they've done on, like I said, bilinguals or musicians have shown comparable structural brain changes. We'll put it that way. And when they see these differences, it adds support to the concept that our brains are actually dynamic based on our learning, based on our environment, based on our experiences. The reason this hit me so hard, I wanted to share it with everybody, is what does this mean for us? Just everyday people, anybody within the context of life. And it's empowering to understand that the structure of our brain and the function of it isn't set in stone. Meaning if you're challenged to learn something new, it's not because you can't learn it. It's scientifically proven you can make changes and your brain can adjust to these new experiences. And the activities that you engage in, the skills you learn, the experiences you have, and even the thoughts and the emotions that we entertain, they all contribute to what we call rewiring the brain circuitry. Okay. It's akin to, or it's like working with clay. Right? It's capable. Our brains are literally capable of being shaped or reshaped throughout our life. And what this does for us is it gives us a proactive approach to our life and to our experiences. It gives us an opportunity in knowing that our brains can adapt, they can evolve, and it's not connected to our age. We'll put it that way. So, what are some of the factors, okay, that influence this neuroplasticity? Okay, we want to look at, or we want to understand some of the factors within our life, some of the things that actually affect it, so that we can intentionally take advantage of those. Okay. And the fact of it is, what they found is that neuroplasticity, or the reshaping, the remolding of the mind, of the brain, it's not a process that occurs in isolation. In fact, the things that influence our brains, really, they come from a myriad of factors that can either enhance our brain and the function of our brain, or sometimes they can impede our brain's ability to rewire itself. And when we understand these things, it provides us with the tools to actively nurture the plasticity in our brain, okay, or to enhance the cognitive function of our learning. And yes, to enhance our mental health. And from there, it goes on physical health. It goes on to all aspects of life. So what are some of the positive things or that influence us, or should I say that differently? What are some of the things that influence our brain plasticity in a positive way that are beneficial to literally our brain? Number one, we hear all the time, regular physical activity. Okay. It increases the production of neurotropic factors, things that are, things are the proteins in our brain that are responsible for growth and the survival of our neurons. Okay. It, it leads to improved brain function. Okay. It facilitates the creation of new neural connections and pathways. Um, Simply put, something as simple as physical activity is fantastic for your brain function. Okay. Another positive one is mental stimulation. Okay. We know this. We heard this. When you quit using your brain, when you quit, engaging and learning and stuff like that, it starts a decline in people. But engaging in intellectually stimulating things, activities, learning new skills, or um, even playing brain training games, right? Those are really popular now. I I actually have two or three of them on my phone so that if I'm in an area where I truly don't have a lot of other things I can do with it, for 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time, I'll pop it open and I'll do some brain training games. Okay, what it does is it fosters new brain cells to grow or strengthen. Um, it strengthens the what they call the neural networks that are already within our brain. So again, simply put, um, it keeps our brains healthy to do mental stimulation, to learn new things, to challenge our mind just beyond what we're used to. Okay, not too far, then it gets frustrating. Go just beyond what you're used to and challenge your mind. Okay, another thing that's really positive, and this helps us mentally and physically, is a healthy diet. So nutrients from that we get from balancing our diet. This ensures that our brain actually receives what it needs to, for creating and maintaining the what's called the synaptic connections. Okay, again, using some of the technical words, um, but it's the connections in the brain, and it's ultimately what we would consider the place where the neurons, okay, where there's nerve cells in the brain, where they connect and where they communicate. That's a simple way to put it. And if you're a scientist and you're really into this and you want to try to correct me, go for it. If you want to get really, really picky, I'm trying to speak in layman's terms a little bit, find a balance here. So some of the nutrients that are specifically helpful, okay, you've probably heard this before: omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants. Okay, these things are specifically or particularly beneficial for our brain's health. Here's one that a lot of people overlook. Okay, something that's beneficial, positive for our brain health, for our mental health, and that's social connection. And let me be clear: positive interactions and relationships. Okay, not every social connection is beneficial for us, but positive ones that support us, ones that um, help us to be creative and find laughter, not the ones that get us all hot and bothered. And by hot and bothered, I mean upset, angry. Those are not positive interactions. We're referring to positive ones. Okay. These help stimulate our brains through emotional and intellectual exchange. These things not only reinforce the existing pathways, neural pathways, okay, but they actually stimulate the creation of new ones. And this is one of the last ones that I want to mention. And I truly can't stress it enough. It's I'm going to say this next one is arguably one of the most important, and that's adequate sleep. Quality sleep at that. Okay. It's essential for our brain's health, for our brain's plasticity, and it plays a significant role in what's called memory consolidation, as well as the removal of neurotoxic waste that accumulates while we're awake. I'm sorry I have to laugh. Yes, just like your bowels, your brain accumulates what you can think of as brain poop. No, I didn't read this and I've not heard this anywhere else ever before. It's just how my brain works. So, welcome to the mind of Coach Michael. Our brains accumulate neurotoxins while we're awake. And quality sleep, plenty of sleep, a good hard 45-minute nap is not going to cut it. A quality amount of sleep at night, it's like having, and forgive me for using this example, but it's as clear as it gets. It's like having a consistently successful bowel movement for our brain. It cleans all that stuff out. Not sleeping well, you can kind of think of it as like being constipated. Okay. Your body isn't able to eliminate all of what I'm referring to as brain poop. Um, and some of it remains inside you if you're not getting enough good sleep. And ultimately, it causes issues over time. So I hope that funny analogy helps you to remember that, how important plenty of quality sleep really is for our mental health, for our brain health. So, that being said, what are some of the things that negatively influence our brain's plasticity specifically, and overall our brain and mental health? Well, one of the top ones, we hear about it all the time, is stress. Chronic stress releases hormones such as cortisol, which at elevated levels actually inhibits what they call neurogenesis, or the creation of new neurons, and it negatively impacts our brain health. So let me put it this way. If you don't have as much stress, if you're getting really good sleep, if you're having great social interactions and eating healthy, your brain is reproducing the things that it needs. If you're highly stressed, it's not doing that. It's like the concept of losing hair. Okay, I can say hair, I've got plenty of it still, luckily. I'm blessed in that way. If your scalp cannot continually reproduce hair through the hair follicles, you have less hair. If your brain is not reproducing over time these neurons, these neural connections, and creating new pathways, that's where you would have, um, you know, issues with what people would consider memory issues and learning challenges and things like that. And again, I'm saying it very non-scientifically right now. Okay, so another thing that's negative is what we consider as a lack of stimulation. Okay, an unstimulating environment is one of the big ones, or what we could call another thing would be a lack of mental challenges. Okay, of challenging your mind, meaning learning something new. That's how we challenge our mind. We push it to learn something new. And not having those things, the stimulating environment or the ongoing mental challenges, it leads to a stagnation in the development of these neurons and neural connections. So Does it mean, I heard somebody say this the other day. I was having a conversation about it, and they said, so are you telling me if I'm not doing this? Or they joked about it and said, I guess I'm getting dumber because I'm not intentionally doing these things. And that's not specifically what I'm saying, but you're not evolving. You're not moving forward. And quite frankly, the world is. So we need to try to keep up or we're falling behind. Okay, another thing that negatively affects us is poor nutrition. And we know this. We think of it more on the physical side, but diets in high processed foods and sugary foods, things like that, it can actually impair our brain function and it can limit our neuroplasticity over time. So maybe you don't hear that very often. A bad diet is horrible for your brain function. Another thing that's horrible for our brain function, and I've talked about this recently in a couple of other episodes, but it's social isolation. Okay? Limiting social interactions reduces our brain's opportunity to forge or create new pathways. It impacts us emotionally. It impacts us cognitively, meaning how our brain works, or our smarts, so to speak, our wit, our, and I don't mean just book smarts. I'm talking book smarts, street smarts, our ability to communicate quickly and precisely. It affects all of these things. Social interaction is a major effect, has a major effect on our mental, emotional, and specifically brain health. Okay. As we said, moving on now, by the way, as we said, sleep is highly important on the positive side. And conversely, sleep deprivation, a lack of proper sleep, it literally impairs the brain's ability to form new memories. Okay. And it weakens its capability to adapt and to rewire. We may talk more about this in a few minutes, but there's a misunderstanding on memory. And in most cases, you remember everything. You may not recall it. You may not be able to pull that memory from the subconscious or the preconscious into your conscious mind, but it's in there. The things we just talked about limit your brain's ability to form the memory itself. In those cases, you don't remember. It's not in there. It's not even in there to be able to pull it up. And that when I, even just to say that, I get the chills. To think about that it's almost a little scary. It really makes me think, wow, I really need to focus on these things of what's healthy and helpful for my brain, and eliminate a lot of what is not in my life, within my experience. So again, understanding these influences offers us a roadmap literally for lifestyle choices, to be able to make choices in our life that support a vibrant, a continuously growing, thriving, and evolving brain. Okay, embracing these practices or specific practices that foster or support neuroplasticity, it not only can, it absolutely significantly impacts our health, our cognitive health, our emotional well-being, our overall mental health. And that affects the quality of our life. So I know a lot of what we're covering it's really technical in a way. And I'm using some big words that I usually wouldn't. And it's a lot to grasp, to grab onto. But I really want to make the point that, again, this Mental Health Mondays is about just that. It's about supporting our mental health. But it's not just for us. We can take this information and we can share it with the people we care about. We can, when we engage with them, we can encourage the brain stimulation, the quality conversation. And if we're going to play games of some sort, it's been the holidays. A lot of families got together. I know every time my family gets together, we come up with some fun and funny games that we play together, and just to pass some of the time and have some laughs. But we also use ones that actually give us new information. We learn from each other within some of these games that we play, and a lot of them are popular ones that are out there. You can buy at the stores, card games and and all kinds of different things. And I'm not going to mention them. I'm not here to promote specific games or something, but we can literally promote this within our families, within our circle of friends, to help ourselves and to help them, the people that we love and care about, to maintain a healthy brain, which means maintain overall health, well-being, and overall mental health itself. So, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, this is actually a two-part series because, as you can see, we've been going for a while. We are at the halfway mark. So I'm going to wind us down for today, but please join us next week, because next week is where we really get into the meat and potatoes of how do we implement this? How does this, not only how does it affect our lives, but how can we, as we just said, how can we implement it into our lifestyle to maintain or to improve, again, our brain health, our mental health, and then overall give us a better quality of life. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Please share any comments that you have and engage with us. That's what this podcast is for. If you've listened to us at all, this podcast highly, highly promotes engagement. So sharing some comments, reach out to us, ask any questions, share any topics that are important to you in this regard. And until we speak, or until next week, live awesome and enjoy your journey.